Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. And again, today I brought on another fantastic panel of guests. So we're going to talk about comics, some stuff going on in the industry. We're going to talk about crowdfunding and all this other good stuff. So before we go into that, please hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, let everybody know we're here. Go check out the Oswald Chronicles, currently live on In Demand at Indy Go. So, a lot of options there. Go pick up some books. Go help out the channel. Go check out the greatest mouse adventure going today. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on the guests. Mr. Evan Posios. How you doing, Evan?
JD, how you doing? I'm Evan K. Posios. I'm the writer and co-creator of the Weird War Tale Time Grunts, the Indiegogo hit Johnny Phantasm, and the recently signed suspense thriller Silence.
Nice. All right. We lost Joe. Oh, there he is.
No, I'm still up here drawing. I'm still at the drawing table.
He's checking that bear score.
It's like the Muppet Show.
No, I'm actually on the drawing table here.
Gotcha.
On the drawing table, so.
Nice. So, Joe, introduce yourself.
I am Joe D. McPhee. I am the president of Assiduously Studios. I am the creator of Amazonia, which I'm working on right now. AWF in prime time Saturday night. As of right now, I'm working on Amazonia number 7 as we speak.
Nice. All right. So let's bring on Mr. J. D. Rosario. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is JD Rosario. I've written titles such as Dragonstorm, Shield of the Interceptor, New York versus the World, Storm Chasers, Unstoppable Origins, a few other things for my self-published imprint called Unstoppable Comics.
Awesome. All right, let's get on Mr. Anthony.
Is this live?
Yes, it is, sir. It's live. It's all about you.
Beautiful. My name is Anthony Figaro. I am the writer and creator of God's Hand, which was successfully funded on Indiegogo. I'm also part of Wolfpack Studios, which we will be putting out also another book called Justice City Chronicles in early February, which will be on Indiegogo.
Nice.
I'm also from New Orleans, if you couldn't tell.
And we also have on for the first time Mr. Marcus. How you doing?
What's going on, guys? Marcus, I'm Anthony's hetero life mate, if you couldn't tell. Creator of Justice City Chronicles, which will be funding in February sometime, and the letterer to God's Hand.
Nice.
Just finished crowdfunding.
Nice.
I do prefer life partner, but life mate, that's fine.
Oh, it's technicality.
Semantics.
He's
Semantics.
As long as he's not derogative.
There you go.
Anthony, if you bring enough beignet next time, I'll be a life mate.
got you, baby. I got you covered,
Easy.
man.
Back off. He's mine.
They fighting over the powder. You know what I mean? What can I say?
There you go.
Listen, you know what? What's the difference between a beignet and a zeppelin? I don't know. I see it's the same thing.
All right, I don't know anything about a Zeppeli. Marcus, you know Zeppeli? Can you help me out over here?
It's fried dough covered in powdered sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the difference is that a beignet, right, is made in New Orleans. That's essentially the difference. So you got a little bit of so you got a little bit of TL, a little extra. We put a little gree in ours. You know what I mean? We put a little bit of gree in it. That's all.
I got you. So like champagne from France, Scotch from Scotland, that kind of thing, right? It's the homegrown location. All right.
They put a little extra tombstone dust in it, Only difference.
So I like talking about pastries, but I'd rather have them rather than talk about them. So look, I got a question for you guys, right? So we all know about what's going on in Kickstarter. Berserker, which was Keanu Reeves out of Boom, raised $1.4 million. Boom is back up to their shenanigans. They're back on Kickstarter. They're raising a bunch of money with the Power Rangers. They're, I think, last I checked was $425,000. Is that right, Evan?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with 24 days left.
Right. So you got another 24 days. They're already up to 4.25. Now, my question to you guys is there any cause for alarm for us as independent publishers, as indie guys? Let's start. Well, I'll start with Evan because he's the one that actually brought this subject up to me. So,
Well, I think, and it was brought up on the last show, is brand is so important. Whether you're branding your book or you're branding yourself or you're branding your imprints, you have to develop that brand. And now with more traditional publishers get the crowdfunding game, that's more important than ever. So you just have to build your audience, create great books, deliver on them. And also that mail list is key, constant contact with your backers.
all right, cool. Joe, do you think there's any concern that that we might have to worry about?
You want the short answer or do you want the long answer?
All right, well, let's try to keep it under 5 minutes. How does that sound?
Well, the long answer, would be 1 minute, but the short answer is like one word.
All right, so there you go. However you want to take it.
Pretty much, why are you concerned about Boom? Because to me, it's like with everything being equal, it shows that you can make that much money as a whole here. So it's just a matter of getting your stuff and doing what you need to do to get your IP popular enough to do those numbers. Again, people look at what somebody else is doing on Kickstarter as something that keeps away from me. It's like, no, Kickstarter is a platform. You have to look at it as a means of distribution. And if Boom is having success over on Kickstarter as far as distributing their comics, you should be okay with it. It gives you even more of that opportunity to emulate that exact same thing. So no, why be concerned about it?
All right, so I'm gonna give you a little pushback on that. I've been in the market a long time. I seen there was a day when we had a bunch of different distributors. We had a bunch of different ways to sell our books. We were doing well. All that got compacted down into one area. It got compacted down to Diamond. You have Marvel and DC, the two big gorillas in the room, and they basically flexed and they said, okay, we're going to put 90 books on the shelf every night. What if Boom would have come out and say, you know what? Boom. All right, here's 20 Kickstarters, 20 campaigns. I mean, Kickstarter only does allow one per campaign at a time, but there could come a time when there's a bunch of these different publishers, out there all at the same time. And that may suck some of the air out of the room.
Not necessarily, because technically Boom cannot do that. The creators of each book can. That's a big difference.
We're talking about right now is just Boom. All right, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's move on to Marcus. Marcus, how do you feel about it?
My immediate reaction is I second his I don't think it's an issue. I think we still have to do what we have to do. Okay. We have to put our best foot forward and produce something that people are going to want. The question is, other than somebody like Ethan, who's got, really hot product out there, he's got a name behind him. Nobody's really established a franchise or something marketable enough to really continue pushing those numbers. In terms of Boom's going to do what they're going to do. But I mean, if you look at it, it's like, all right, so they're going to make a lot of money republishing Power Rangers, an established property, books that were already printed. I mean, I get your point. What happens if this becomes a bigger thing? More publishers get involved. They want to step in there and do the same thing. But I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Doesn't stop what we're doing.
Right. Now, mind you, I don't necessarily disagree. I'm just presenting a counterpoint. You understand? So it's just one of these things. I'm playing devil's advocate, basically.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Anthony, how do you feel?
Well, I feel it's hard for me to express my true feelings as they may conflict with my hetero life partner, and they say happy wife, happy life, and I don't want to get into it. Me and my man.
I think you're a little confused who's wearing the skirt here, buddy.
Oh,
I mean, look, I understand your power bottom. It's okay. I'm not trying to. I love Marcus. I love Marcus. Oh, yeah. You got to really like a guy to be able to call him a power bottom. You know, you got to have a good relationship.
It goes beyond pitcher catcher.
I see it, and I understand the points that's being made. I do, JD. But at the same time, I'm going to echo what Joe and Marcus kind of said. I think that those. I mean, and then I don't even know how much of a pull it's going to be, because I mean, essentially, you're talking about books that would have been sold in shops that people were going to buy. They're going to buy Power Rangers. Mm-hmm. You know, they're going to buy one way or the other. You put it on there again. It's that they're going to buy that. Again, Evan kind of hit on this in the beginning. What we have to do is stay ahead of the game. See, all these people are coming in late. So again, they're still working off of their old system of marketing. Whereas we have these understandings of social media, of YouTube, of all these different things to personally build audience. That if I'm personally building an audience that I'm interacting with, then those are my shares, and those are going to be my return shares. So we're still ahead of the game on that. I believe that. I think that if we continue to utilize the foothold that we have, I think we can stay ahead in these areas. Again, are you going to pull as many numbers as Power Rangers? Probably not, because Power Rangers, as Marcus said, it's already got a built-in thing. I think the test will be is what happens when Boom or these companies start putting out new content, not rehashes of old content, because you're pulling in already built fan bases. We're having to build shit from the ground up. So what happens when they bring in properties that aren't tested and are people going to spend the same money? Oh, it's Boom and it's this thing. Or are they going to go, whoa, I don't know what this is, but I do know what Johnny Phantasm is. I do know what Justice City Chronicles is. I do know with these other books out here. I already know what these are. So do I want to now risk on something that I'm not sure about, or just keep going with these people who I know are producing good work? So I think it's gonna, from me, that's how I'm seeing it right now.
All right, that's fair. Jay, how do you feel about it?
All right, the contrarian stepping in. So I want to jump on a little bit with what Anthony is saying. As indies, I do think we're the innovators, right? We push beyond the confines. When they first did it with Berserker, I thought, okay, it was a good thing. We were getting a rub off of it. You know, it was a brand new title. They brought in a celebrity name to push the platform and bring new people onto the platform. Great. With Power Rangers, I mean, you know, that's a major property, right? I think the question is, what do they see in the market that they're jumping into this area? Is it something like Hasbro realizing that they don't have the outlets with Toys R Us and KB, so they did their own platform, right, to I guess pre-sell, crowdfund, whatever you want to call it, and maybe Boom is taking a page out of their book, utilizing the crowdfunding platform to, I guess, follow that pattern with what Hasbro's doing, because they don't have their own portal to do something like that. But what happens when other companies that are bigger than us start to catch on and push us out? Yes, do we have to do what we got to do? Of course. But prior to coming out to this show, Joe, I never heard about your books. Anthony, Marcus, sorry, guys, I'm not trying to downplay your work at all, but I've never heard about your books either. And I'm sure you guys haven't heard about me. We're doing what we can do, but these guys out there, without knowing it, are pushing us to the back of the store, right? I mean, if we're looking at the comic shop analogy, how many shelves do many stores have for the indie books, right? And where are those shelves at? Tucked away in the back. Are we going to be tucked away in the back of these crowdfunding platforms, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah.
Not if we stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, but in what way?
Again, people are taking a wrong mental stance on it. What I heard from JD, in a sense, is like, I want to complain because these larger companies got a 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, even 80-year head start on some of their IPs on us coming in as independents, or as I call it, just regular publishers.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fight a fight where you're up here competing against something that has already been established that long. You have to carve out your own. You can't. It's not an apples to apples at this point. It's only based upon what you're doing and how much you're producing versus how much they're producing. It
Right, and we're never
takes
going to
one of your products to make it, to build the rest of your company or the rest of your other brands, while they're up here still trying to struggle to keep their branding in front of people. Completely different game plan that they're playing than what we're playing at all.
I hear you, and that's all well and good. I mean, I hear you. You understand? But how many of these things have you ever seen take off like that? I mean, I could probably count them on one hand, maybe both hands. You know, we had something like Teenage Ninja Turtles has popped off into his own thing. Maybe Usagi Yojimbo. Hellboy. The Crow. Well, but he sold away all his rights. He screwed himself in the beginning. So, you know, I didn't even count that one because he sold everything off. He murdered himself on that deal. I feel bad for James O'Barr.
When it comes to crowdfunding, right? Look, Silvestri did it, right? I think he was the first major name to utilize Kickstarter with Cyberforce. You know, Rob Liefeld did it. I don't know how well he was with fulfilling his orders through Kickstarter. I don't know of anyone in between them and Boom with a major property like the Power Rangers being part of this. You know, I mean, Power Rangers owned by Hasbro. Yes, it's licensed by by Boom, excuse me, but they got millions of dollars behind that product. All they got to do is sneeze and people are going to be buying it. We got to do more than sneeze for anybody to notice us.
Now, here's my next. Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I understand, and I get that. I do, and I think that's what Evan was talking about, and that's what I feel like is that that's why you utilize what's at your disposal, the social media that's at your disposal, and you have to build an audience that way. I don't, and as far as these guys getting into it, I don't know, man. I don't know if again, you know, if the COVID situation plays a role in that, you know what I mean? Because the shops are getting shut down now, and so they don't have that, so they're tipping into the water right now. You know, going again, I don't know, because what comes to my mind is you have to even remotely compete with this stuff. Again, to me, there are people who have taken advantage of this stuff, and they have taken it to a different level, because crowdfunding and is you created something different, right? So you can still have these people who do this stuff like Boom and stuff like this, but again, like you're saying, they have a built-in fan base. They have a built-in stuff. They're not gonna invest in the one-on-one connections with the fans as we will. They just won't do it.
Right.
And so what I've seen happen is some creators have banded together and they cross promote each other, and that shit works. If you can get past all the division bullshit, right, of left, right, this, that, and all this kind of bullshit, and get into what is quality product, right? My whole thing is and again, without getting too far into it, but it's hard to talk about this stuff without talking about. My thing is that, man, I'll work with almost anybody, right? I'll promote anybody's stuff, as long as this, and this is where I draw the line, and a lot of the people who are like me draw the line in like this: as long as you don't put your messaging above the craft of storytelling, then we good. Because once you put your messaging above the craft of storytelling, you are now an activist, and you should just go and write propaganda for somebody, because that's what you're doing. I'm all about craft. You want to write a political story? I don't give a shit what your politics are. You want to write a political story and you write it and you put the craft of storytelling first, man, do your thing. You want to write a story about there's 1,000 different genders out there and you put the art of storytelling first, man, do it. Go do your thing. because that's what we are. We're storytellers. So if
We're
you bring
entertainers, yeah.
and you're out here telling stories first, right? Go for it. Do your thing. And I think everybody feels that way. I think where everybody gets mixed up is when you start to put the messaging above the storytelling, and you're hurting the craft because you're not really telling a story. You're writing propaganda. And so I think if we can set that and say, hey, listen, those of us who are storytellers, who want to be free thinkers and tell whatever stories we want, but we respect the craft and we respect the game. I think if you can bring those people together and say, this is what we need to focus on. Good storytelling, good product, man. You know what I'm saying? And band together like that. I think you have a base. I think you have something which then can cross promote and then can say, listen, this is why we're here, because these other guys are beholden to whatever. They're beholden to the fickleness of the market, where we're over here trying to create serious, solid content. And I think that's going to be one of the things. We don't make Happy Meals. We don't make, you know what I'm saying? We don't make production line hamburgers. I make handcrafted hamburgers over here. They both hamburgers, but one of them, is handmade. The other one is just made to go down the assembly line. And I think that's where our strengths are.
We're making craft beers. I get it.
There you go. Now listen, we're getting a little far afield. I got another question that kind of ties into all this. All right.
Okay.
So now look. Now, should Kickstarter, any of these crowdfunding platforms, should they even be allowing stuff like licensed items on their websites? Because these things are licensed. This isn't even third-party stuff. This is almost fourth-party at this point. You understand? Should Kickstarter allow something like Power Rangers or event, like imagine IDW, they have some of the Marvel stuff underneath their line. What if they came out and say, you know what, we need some money to do Thor or to do Avengers? You understand? Should they be allowed to do that? Joe, you first.
I'm about to say something really kind of crass, but I kind of caught myself here. But to answer I'm going to have to answer your question. I'm going to have to answer your question with a question.
Go ahead.
Would you get upset if you had somebody that wanted to do a licensed toy of the Oswald Chronicles, and all of a sudden Kickstarter and Indiegogo said, no, that's a licensed product, you can't do it? Would you get mad at that?
Would I get mad at that? So it's something like that's already kind of happened to me, so I don't. No, I wouldn't.
See, that's part of the question here, because you can't separate which IPs should be banned and which ones are not. Which things that are licensed are good and which ones are not. You can't do that. It's an all or nothing. Either you're going to have to let those go
right
across the board, or you got to say there is none whatsoever. So that means that all of these Kickstarters for enamel pins and all this other stuff for licensed products will also go away. It will affect other categories.
Most of those enamel pins are unlicensed.
Right, but I'm just saying, in general, all of that stuff had to go as far as a whole. So you just can't just say, should we think this way? It's like, well, you're cutting your nose to spite your face at that point.
Granted, but I mean, I don't know if we're in that situation, but hold on, let's move on to Marcus. How do you feel about it?
I'm kind of in the same boat, to be honest with you. It's a free market. Let them do what they're going to do. I can't see it. I can't see why you would. It's a slippery slope, trying to dictate what can be, what can't be. Let them do what they're going to do. I mean, if we're talking about Marvel or DC, I mean, shit, they got a hard enough time selling their own books as it is. What are they going to bring? What are they going to bring to the table? We got Batman pins that we're going to put on Kickstarter. I mean, it just is what it is. I don't see it as an issue. I wouldn't care if they did it. It's a non-issue to me. But
I got you. Like I said, just to repeat myself, I asked these questions. Some of them I'm just playing devil's advocate on. You understand? I just want to hear what people are thinking. You understand? Because it's important to know what how we feel about this. So Anthony, how do you feel about it?
I'm gonna have to just be an echo on this one, and just it's same way. I believe in free market principles, so it's like once you start getting into saying, it's always the question isn't whether or not you should limit some license, or it's who decides that at the end of the day, who makes those decisions. You know what I mean? And if you go and if you lay the carte blanche down, it's okay. Well, if you lay the carte, it's say, okay, well, all across the board, no licensed products. Are you cutting your nose off to spite your face? Like, what is the long-term ramifications of that? You know what I'm saying? And so it's one of those things where I still go back to, and I know it's tough and competition always is, but that's what leads to innovation. I mean, that's what leads to better products. So it's like, got you, but cutting the competition or limiting the competition, I don't know if that's necessarily in this situation. I don't know if that benefits us in the long run. So my first impression on that is the echo what Joe and Marcus said, just be like, nah, I would be against it unless you could really present numbers and long-term effects and things like that. Show me a real, pros and cons if that went down.
All right, cool. Jay, how do you feel?
I think it should be allowed. Let's look at something like the Sectars toys line from Zika, right? That's an average Joe like us who, he put his pennies together. He got a license, and he came up with some money to pay for the license, but he still needed, to cover manufacturing costs. Where do you go? You go to crowdfunding, and that's what he did, right? Same thing when Boss Fight Studios started with the action figures. Same thing with Fresh Monkey Fiction. That they mixed in some of the public domain stuff with their toys with some licensed stuff like Madman and Savage Dragon and the Flaming Carrot. So yeah, should it be allowed? Of course. Are there other companies like the Miniatures that do board games for Batman and stuff like that? They're there. They're out there. Yes. Is it a slippery slope if you say no? Yeah. I don't think you can regulate it without losing the battle on that one.
All right, fair enough. Randy, you're in. Please.
I'm here. I'm sorry I'm late. I just saw your link. So been working on my book and was off 2 dimensions to the left.
Gotcha.
What was the question again?
No, I said introduce yourself first.
Oh, hey, everybody. I'm Randy Zimmerman. I'm a longtime independent and alternative creator, producer, done just about everything in the direct market that you can ever imagine for multiple times, coordinated conventions, retailed for years, done a lot of stuff. Comics are my passion. The easiest way to put it. Now, what was the question?
Question was, should books like we're talking about Boom Studios and Power Rangers being on Kickstarter, and should licensed product along those lines, you understand, them Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, should they even be allowed on those crowdfunding platforms?
Well, that door has already been busted open with Keanu. So, and Boom walking out and going, "Hey, I guess we're poor. Can we have some money?" You gotta. I don't know where you're going to. I doubt there's going to be a line. McFarlane's already blown past that line for McFarlane Toys. I think it's too late. The door's open, and anybody out there who thinks, "Oh, they're crimping our money," by doing it is wrong thinking. They need to up their game in order to get to that point and up their visibility to get to that level. Am I mad that Boom Studios is offering a Power Rangers book? I'm not a Power Rangers fan, by the way, and I'm not. I'm not a Boom Studios fan either. But I'm not going to stop them or raise a point saying that or telling their gatekeepers at these platforms what they can and can't do, because I want attention brought to those platforms as much as possible, because every bit of money that goes through Boom Studios adds to their war chest. So they're going to go out and chase after and hopefully make better comics off of this, do a better edition. You want a collector's who you want a hardcover with a slipcase version, beautifully done, of Power Ranger comics? I think your You're more than allowed and due to have it. If Boom can't cover that cost or feels that they have to go to crowdfunding in order to get it done, whatever you have to do, because it's going to be a limited edition collector's book.
All right.
And it's a collector's market. And if it pulls more people into crowdfunding going, I wonder what other comics are here also trying to be crowdfunded, which it will, a small percentage, might not be a great percentage, but every product like that, Keanu is a great example, brings that attention in and stretches that platform and that market open. More power to them, more money for us.
That's true. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Evan, how do you feel about it? Evan, are you still there?
Yes.
Not there.
Sorry.
I think Randy hit the nail on the head. I mean, more eyeballs to the platforms means more money for indie guys like us. It helps, competition's great. I mean, high water raises all ships, and we just have to keep putting out quality products and keep building.
Has he been fading in and out?
Yeah, I
It's
think
first time.
that's the first time, man.
He's really fading in like this.
Yeah.
This is what happens when they don't turn their camera on. We don't know if they're live or not.
That's true.
Yep.
Evan, you still there? You might have.
You faded out, Evan. We couldn't hear you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We can
I
hear
can hear you fine. Yeah.
Can now, brother.
Gotcha.
Hear you now.
Yeah, I was just
And he's gone
I
again.
was just saying that more eyeballs.
Wherever is your
It,
friend?
it happens to all of us.
Yes. Last week was Jay.
There's a pill you can take. It's blue. It's small. It helps you over situations like this.
Oh, there he is.
That's an excellent point. If Kickstarter is found promoting unlicensed materials, they need to be called to the carpet for it, because that would tick me off. If somebody were to offer one of my IPs as a crowdfunder, I'd be screaming. And Kickstarter needs to be held with their feet to the fire and responsible for allowing that to happen, especially considering how they've had gatekeepers in the past deciding what comics are going to be there and not be there. That is inexcusable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that when you do a licensed product like that, you need to show Kickstarter the fact that you have the right to do that. Yeah.
You have a lot of that going on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It's probably on both platforms. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
I know for a fact. I've seen pins for She-Ra. Remember the cartoon that was done by Netflix just recently? I've seen a couple of those pins floating around, and I know they weren't licensed. They look nice, and these people were making, like, you're talking about, maybe $20,000-$30,000.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the company that was doing that?
They're private individuals. There's like,
well, see, there have been people doing fanfic on and fan comics on Kickstarter. They don't last very long once they're discovered by the IP's owners.
Right.
Like the Batman book that was on Kickstarter. There was a Batman book that was on Kickstarter that was there for about 7 days.
Yeah, there's been a couple of Star Wars attempts too.
Yeah, we talked. I remember talking about that with John, because I was tripped out on that. It was especially because it was a Star Wars. I was on Indie Boat when we were talking about that, Randy, and it was a Star Wars, and I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, and it had been up kind of for a minute, if I remember correctly. And we were like, man, how come they haven't taken this shit down? It's crazy. I agree with that comment.
Yeah, it's a blatant example of how well Kickstarter needs to be watching who's posting campaigns on their platform.
100%. I would definitely 100% back that comment. That if anything, make sure that you don't have that going on before you worried about all of this other stuff. It's like, Jesus, man, make sure that's taken care of for sure.
But that also goes back to the other thing that I kind of wish that they would do, which is you have to have a finished product before you launch, because that way they could check all the boxes to make certain that everything is done as far as knowing if the product is licensed or not, that you have full control over it and everything to that magnitude.
Well, that's also.
I'm sorry. Are you referring to licensed products only?
No, all product. Because
Oh, I have to
remember,
check that one out.
the true difference between Indiegogo and Kickstarter is that Kickstarter requires you to have something that is considered a working prototype before you can start a campaign.
Oh, we're talking about just strictly Kickstarter?
Just in general for any crowdfunding platform. Yeah, for any crowdfunding platform, you know, I would lobby for having a finished product.
I think you genuinely have to show intent and enough progress on your project. That some people do crowdfunding campaigns in order to afford that next step, in order
100%.
to afford an artist or afford a colorist or all of that. And I don't think those people should be denied, but they should definitely have if they're going to gatekeep or have a liaison up there, talk to them and go, how far along is this project? Are you sure that you want to say you're going to come out at this date because you don't have artwork together yet? Maybe you should go 3 months later to give your artist a chance to hit.
I want the least amount of people. I want the least amount of people involved in my decision making and creative process as possible. And it's not that you're not making it's not that you ain't making a valid point. I totally understand what you're saying. The problem is, and I come back to this all the time, it's like either we believe in free markets or we don't. Because if you operate like that and you don't produce, because believe me, I felt the fire the whole time. You know what I mean? I want to produce a product and I want to have fans. I had a lot of issues, a lot of problems. Yes. I stayed in contact with my fans. I tried to in areas where I could add to, I added to, so that when the buyer gets my product and gets all the extras that we put in, that they feel good about what they spent their money on, so that they'll come back and buy again. If I just blew all that shit off and just sent everybody a substandard book and all this kind of bullshit, it doesn't matter how slick job or whatever I told people, they're not going to want to spend their money again with me. And so it's the nature of doing business, because at the end of the day, it's going to be that same old question. How far do you want to go into regulating this, and who gets to say what's regulated and what's not? Who gets to, because the more hands you get in your pocket, the more hands you get into saying when you can create, when you can launch, what you can create, what you can. That's, it just brings us back to that bullshit. That's not
the point that was bringing up by that. What I'm bringing up by that is each creator showing how much skin they're willing to put in the game for that particular project. Because again, you have too many creators out there that will go and grab any old artist to get 4 or 5 pages together and take forever or never come out with that project and run off with the money.
100%.
I think some means to show
100%. I think
100% solid that you are going to come out with this without minor implications on any other problems that could come up later on down the line. You cannot just say, okay, I want to create this project. Here's 2 or 3 sample pages that may not be even in the project. You just have some artists just draw like some sample characters and whatnot, and that's it. You have nothing going towards that actual project, but yet these platforms are allowing you to go out there with the campaign.
So I think these platforms need a liaison representative, not to dictate what you're doing, but to watch over what they're doing in order to protect their platform and the fact that your campaign represents everybody else's campaign on that platform.
Exactly.
They need to come out, not tell you what to do, but suggest to you, hey, it's time that you touch base and become transparent to your buyers in order to keep them informed, because you're starting to get nervous. You're refunding a lot of books here and you're losing money. Maybe you should do this. Not to tell them to do that as much as coming in and working with them to suggest them in order to protect their platform and everybody else's campaign at the same time.
I just have an issue with treating you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
No. I wanted to jump on this, and I agree with you guys. There needs to be some level of involvement with, all right, how much skin you have in the game. But just playing devil's advocate against that point, I mean, that's something that's been done in business since, well, I know Golden Globus, the production company, right? The movie guys, the cousins. They used to go to Cannes with just a production, a poster.
Sure.
and sell movies based on the production poster. Nobody attached to it, actors, directors, nothing, right? And they would raise money. So just playing devil's advocate, that's been done already for years, and it's probably always going to be done. I know people at the beginning of Kickstarter, or even recently in Kickstarter, were using this as a cash cow. They were doing the same thing, and they were getting over. How many of them have come back based on Kickstarter restricting them, as opposed to the community calling them out? I don't know, but I think it's more the community calling them out than anything
100%.
else.
I think I agree with and I agree with that. And I think what happens is how far treating, because again, I look at myself as a creator, but also as someone who consumes content. The idea that I'm going to start treating customers as if they're not smart enough to make their own decisions, right? It's like, it's your money. If you want to put it on something and it doesn't work, that's your money. That's your freedom to make those decisions. Me starting to try to treat my customers or to treat the consumers if they're not smart enough to make their own decisions. It's like you're opening the door to something that, again, intent is good intent. It's good intent because you're trying to say, hey, let's weed this out. Let's do this. Let's do this. But you're starting to pull into, well, you're oversteering the market in a way that, just what Jay said, that's to say that there's no one out there who has started with nothing and created great content. And so if we limit that, you cut that off. What is the overall cost? What is the overall cost versus the overall benefit of doing something like this? Is Kickstarter?
Nobody actually started with nothing.
Is Insta shit? You looking at somebody that didn't start with nothing? Is Instagram?
You had an idea. You had an idea. You had a passion, and you was willing to put your own.
Yeah, but you can't. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. You can't quantify that though. I could come up with something right now and make you think it's the greatest thing in the world because I'm a good orator, because I can do those things. That's what I'm saying. I totally understand what Joe and Randy say. I completely understand. And the part of me is like, well, yeah, you need to limit this, because I'm already in the door now. So now I'm like, well, yeah, you need to limit some people and shit. But it's like, but if that was there, it would have constrained me coming in. And so I have to think about where I was when I came in and say, as much as it does make sense. It's like, man, what is the cost of this? What is the overall cost?
I'm not suggesting limiting people. I'm suggesting somebody to run as Overwatch.
I like a help
sure that
desk.
those campaigns run smooth and transparent.
All right, guys, hold on.
Sorry.
Marcus,
I
it looked like Marcus wanted to say something. What were you going to say?
No.
No, yeah, I agree. I agree with both sides. I mean, because you're asking people to back a concept a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. What does it take to get an artist and put together a couple of images and be like, this is my project, back it, and you're working from scratch? You know what I mean? Like, what are the odds that that's going to come out? You're going to hit the date, especially if you haven't done this before. I mean, your first timer going into this, do you know what the production is to get this done, to hit a date, to be able to fulfill? It's not easy. You know what I mean? They may think it is until you get in there and start doing this stuff. It's not. So to come with the concept alone, somebody should be watching over this to some extent.
And I really think that's what Kickstarter started out with. That was their intent, but it turned into gatekeeping really fast. When the people stepping up and putting campaigns up there didn't match the overseer's political views. That can't be.
That's ultimately my point.
Yeah, that can't happen.
But how do you stop? You're talking about that from happening?
Yeah, you got to be talking about some hard guidelines. Wait, you could plug in. Hey, this is what I'm proposing. I'm proposing a 60-page graphic novel. Okay, well, what do you have? Well, I got 20% of that done. It's in the process, and your intent is, well, I need to campaign so I can pay the people to finish this project.
Yeah.
But it's in the works.
Yeah.
If you can get into a spot like that where it's like, okay, you know what, show us what you got.
Right.
If it hits the mark,
Yes.
we're going to let you go.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, exactly. It can't be anything other than that. Then it's, well, you know, who did you vote for? Well, that's not part of this.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? Like,
Right.
Yep.
Good luck with that.
yeah, pretty much.
No, you have to find somebody that's empathetic enough to do it and not wanting to
Right.
push their power or their political stance around. That's
Exactly.
what you have to find.
ultimately- That's
Somebody
ultimately
who's-
the issue. Go ahead.
Wait,
JD, I'm sorry.
Here's the thing. Check it out. Well, one, I want to say this. For you guys listening on Facebook, I don't always get the messages from Facebook. They don't always come through. So if you want to really like have me see your messages, I would suggest maybe going through YouTube. But anyway, but my point is this, is that like, you know, I have this channel and I have this show. I'm pretty sure there are a number of you guys that didn't vote in the same way I voted.
Mhm.
And that's fine. I don't care. You
didn't vote
understand?
the same. Bullshit, bro.
I like
you
your
look
hat.
like an independent guy.
Fucking, I'm out of here. God damn it.
But no, but what I'm saying is that, you know, you can, we can all sit down and talk. You understand? And not have to go into that area. We're talking about comics. We're talking about indie comics. We're talking about art. You understand? We're talking about creation. We're not talking about like, you know, who you want in office or whatever. Like, who gives a shit? Because I sure don't. I don't give two fucks who anybody voted for. You understand? I just want to like do comics, do indie comics, and just move on. You got an agenda? Listen, go. There's a corner down the street. Go talk about your agenda. There's a lamppost that'll listen to you. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
You know.
So, all right, can I jump in here?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, if there is some sort of regulation or I don't gatekeeper, I do think that there should be a record of those who have done multiple releases and have not fulfilled those releases. You know, maybe start restricting those. And all right, the
Sure.
unlicensed stuff that's getting up there, or even the mashup stuff that skirts those lines. You know, because when you're putting Princess Leia in the Harley Quinn suit and using that as your cover image on you know, I think that's throwing the wool over people's eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because which one of those two properties has something to do with your book as it is? So things like that, I think there should be a stronger grasp of. But, you know, with somebody who's trying to get their product out there, I think that the reins should be loosened a lot more for stuff like that.
Yeah. And here's one for Joe. I don't remember the campaign. I don't know the guy's name, but I know a few years ago a guy held a campaign, a very successful campaign.
Mhm.
He started fulfilling. He had this huge order of books done. He started fulfilling. He wanted, I don't know, something in his life went off the rails. He went off the rails. He ended up burning the rest of the run. And he just told his fans, screw you, I don't care about you, I'm not fulfilling.
I remember hearing that.
Yes.
I mean, you know, and like, you know, he got the books printed. He started fulfilling. Something happened. And so it just goes to show you that even if you say you got, the book is done, the book is printed, things happen in life, you know. So unfortunately, you know, we're not always going to get our books. It sucks.
Right.
But, you know, it happens. All right, so let's move
No,
on.
I'm trying to find this real quick here because there was something that just recently happened that just came back to my memory about a campaign that came out on a Kickstarter that got past the censors per se. And only thing that they had to have no graphics, no nothing. They just said we're just going to produce a comic.
Right.
Images coming later. This, that, the other. It was active for at least 2 days with only one person backing for $1. Yes, it's always going to be a buyer beware, but it's just that for me,
What's
when
up,
it comes
Mark?
to this, as a person who always, you know, tried not to put the burden on getting the book out on my fan base, you know, I try to put that squarely on me, and it kind of hurts sometimes where it's like everybody's coming out with this. Oh, I need this to produce this. It's like, well, if you already did 2 or 3 campaigns, why are you needing more money to produce the next issue?
Let's. I can tell you from
Yeah.
experience. I always need more money to produce.
No, I'm not talking from the standpoint of needing more money, but I'm just saying you have a base to continue on.
Right.
At the end of the day,
it's not like you started all the way over from the beginning again.
That's what makes you what you are, though, Joe. That's what I'm saying. That's why you have fans. That's why you have return fans, because you do that. You understand what I'm saying? The people who are not engaging with that, they're not going to make it. They're not going to go. I'll go in for Jay's idea. I like that. Like if you're putting out, if you're going in on campaigns and you're not fulfilling, then yeah, there should be a database. There should be something going on over there going, look, dude, you've put out 3 of these, you fulfilled none of them. Until you fulfill one of these 3, you can no longer do any more of these. I mean,
no. It should be 3 for 3.
What you mean?
You should have never gotten to the 3rd one.
Right.
Well,
if you're not fulfilling even over on, I think it's Indiegogo, you get 1, and then if you do 1, maybe you can have 2.
Right.
And if you're really big and successful and you fulfill 2, then you can have 3 rolling at once. But
no. I wasn't.
There has to be a handle on these campaigns.
No. I didn't mean one. I didn't mean it at one time.
Yeah.
What I meant was if you put out a campaign and you didn't fulfill, you can put a limit on that to say, listen, you put out 2 campaigns, 3 campaigns, whatever, you never fulfilled them. You ended the campaign and the whole 9 thing is done. You can't start another campaign. You just can't do it. It can't be done anymore until you fulfill some of these previous campaigns. I'm for that. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think Kickstarter will only let you do 1 at a time.
I think Indiegogo is the same way until you build a
I'd even go with a help desk where you could go and you could plug in, because Marcus had me thinking of where you could go plug in numbers and you can say, look, I got a 60-page book. I got 20% done. You can plug those numbers in and it tell you, well, look, if you have 60 pages, 20% done, you may want to set your campaign for this amount of time. Because traditionally, this would to help people who, again, in the spirit of being helpful, to help newcomers who are coming in, say, hey, how do I do this? How do I get this done so they don't ruin their rep, or they don't ruin the platform's rep, or they don't burn any customers? I'm for that as well.
That's what I'm saying.
I think if you start putting hard lines on what that's how do you stop it from becoming, a commissar? How do you stop it from becoming a czar? How do you stop it from becoming, oh, well, you have this much done, but it's just not the right type of book, this, that, and the other. And they can utilize the rules that are set out to be helpful to be limiting. And so that's why I'm always for limiting as little as possible. That way you allow the market and the people, because again, the customers aren't they're not complete idiots. You know what I'm saying? To decide what has merit and what doesn't. If Joe sends his books out and he stays in contact with his customers and he sends them stuff like this, they're going to return to Joe. If Johnny over here is just all over the place and he don't do shit, the next time he launches something, no one's gonna want to put money for it. And what Jay said too is eventually other creators are going to start calling that shit out on these social media platforms and saying, look, this is bullshit. You're giving us a bad name. You're putting this, and you're not fulfilling. You're not doing these things. You have
to police your own.
Right.
I do. I think that probably, because in that, I think you have a checks and balances, because you'll always have people who are going to eventually step out of line and go after somebody that they shouldn't. But you're hoping that the other part of the community says, hey, well, let's hold on a second, man. Like, yeah, we can see this, but you're going a little hard in the paint over here, man. If the guy can reconcile, if he can make it right, let him make it right. Because we don't want to get into this cancel shit where it's like, oh, you fucked up, you didn't fulfill. This guy's trash. Don't ever fool with him ever again. We want to offer redemption. You know what I'm saying? And I think as a community, I think that's I think that's where that comes from.
I agree, because there's nothing stopping anybody from fulfilling, even if it's after that due date. Right. As long as you fulfill, that's the major goal. You can't consider your campaign done until you fulfill. Period.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And by the way, I put the link of that Kickstarter that I was referring to. That's currently out there with 8 days left to go. The person's asking for over $27,000. But look at what they said, and just like stuff like that. does not bode well for the platform. It does not bode well for us.
How much money have they got? So
$1.
I guess that's my point. You know, I mean, you know. Oh, is JD putting in his own questions? What?
No, this is actually from Facebook. This is from, hold on, I'll pull up his name. Mike James Bengston. Like I said, I'm not, for some reason, I'm not getting everything from Facebook.
I got you.
Right? So he says, you know, if enough of these available, do you think we would get another platform? You know?
I mean, there's already other platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo out there. They're just not as popular.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess there's what, the WeFunder, and what was the other one?
Well, WeFunder, GoFundMe. You got all these different crowdfunding sites. It's just that for comics, Indiegogo and Kickstarter are the popular ones.
Like technology shifts at a 5-year clip, right? So, I mean, sooner or later, Kickstarter is going to be beat out by something else. I'm sure we all remember MySpace, right?
Yeah.
Don't talk bad about MySpace, Jay.
We all have fond memories. What's wrong with you? My favorite band is still on there.
Oh!
So anyway, let's get back a little bit more on track here. All right, here's one that I know. Okay, here we go. Do you think if Boom hadn't launched Power Rangers on Kickstarter, that money that was generated by them, do you think that stuff would have been maybe siphoned out to other creators?
No. No.
That's pretty much what I thought the answer would be. But, you know, I thought I'd throw it out there.
But there are people out there that want to scream that because they think that the pie is limited, that the wallets, everybody's wallets is so small. The problem is this industry is so small. We don't know the full potential of everybody's wallet. And we're never going to see it for years remotely, because if the product is good, the person buying in isn't afraid not to buy that horrible video game that keeps getting recalled in order to buy a product on Kickstarter that they know they're going to physically hold in their hands and enjoy for years.
Right.
There's that the money will come in. If you build it, they will come, basically. And folks know that you exist. That's the big key. That's why these platforms get the attention they do. It's because they have the potential of somebody going up there for one thing and finding 4 other things.
All right. So look, here's. Well, I got one more question after this. So, is the involvement of Boom and other large publishers a boom or a bust for indie creators? Do you think it's a benefit to us to have those guys on there, or do you not think? Let's start with Marcus.
A boom or a bust?
Right.
Good call.
Do you think it's a good thing? Bad thing? You know,
I don't think it's a bad thing. Whether it's a good thing remains to be seen. I think you slap Keanu Reeves' face on anything, and you could sell a turd like Cyberpunk. So, I mean, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I don't think it negatively impacts us. Not as it is. Does it help? Maybe it brings more eyes on what we're doing. Maybe people are looking at that and then looking at something else, you know, and maybe pick that up. I don't think that's happening on a huge, level. I think it remains to be seen. What else, you know, like the Power Rangers thing. What does that mean for us? You know what I mean? Unless one of us is doing something that's an awful lot like Power Rangers, you know what I mean? Like, how does that? Yeah, I'm gonna put everybody in helmets and leotards in Justice City. Thanks. That thinking, always thinking this way, always thinking that one. I don't think it hurts us. I don't think it really helps us, but more eyes on what we're doing in any regard is a plus, because they're certainly not looking at DC and Marvel anymore. So it's just my 2 cents.
The what?
Can I get
Anthony, how do
a
you feel about it?
refund? Can I get a refund? All right. Get a refund on them 2 cents, man. Come on. All right. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say I have 2 answers. I think that will it hurt some people? Kind of what Marcus said. I mean, if you have anything that's remotely like Power Rangers, it could hurt you. Is it going to take money away from some people? Sure, I think so. Is it going to help some people? Yeah, it's going to help me because I believe that the more people that's going to come around digging through there, I have faith in my IP and my talent and my work. I have faith in the stuff that we're doing. So yeah, anybody who's going to come around and sniff around for new product or anything like that, I definitely want that. But not everybody's going to want that. It's gonna again, it's competition. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's going to wind up doing and that's what you're hoping for myself. Steel sharpens steel. Bring it on. Let's see what you got. Because whatever you're doing, you know what I mean? Then that's what I need to be doing plus one. You know what I mean? I need to be offering that plus and sharpening myself and making myself, move that much harder. For myself, I think it will definitely benefit me. Negatively, I don't, not for myself. Some people maybe. So I think overall, it's good for the health of the overall industry. All
right, cool. Jay, how do you feel about it?
I'm going to say it's a boom only because we need to pay attention to what Ross Ritchie is doing, right? He is an old soul in this industry. He's back from Malibu, right? So he went through Malibu, the Ultraverse. He got one of his first titles, a production deal with Two Guns, right? One of the first books that came out of Boom. Excuse me. So what does Ross Ritchie see about the industry that nobody else is seeing? Right? How did he survive in places where Gorilla, Ape, so many other indies that came out in the early 2000s didn't survive?
Were you talking about Ape Entertainment?
Yeah.
I remember those guys.
Yeah, you see?
So do I.
Right? And they were out there, right? Lion Forge and Oni had
to
team up, but why?
Brett Irwin was out there, brother.
Yeah, Ross Ritchie had a $20 million first look deal with Fox. There's no more Fox, right? That money's gone. He's got to make up for it somehow. So he's innovating in his own way.
Ross Ritchie runs Boom.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, cool. Mr. Joe, how do you feel about it?
How do I feel about it? Simple. I wouldn't say it's a boom, but it's definitely not a bust. It's somewhere in between. And the reason I say it's somewhere in between because, again, when you got companies like Boom coming out here bringing known properties to the crowdfunding platform, it really takes the platform itself to match it up to stuff that's similar. So it gives you an opportunity to shine right next to those properties. Whether you have a property that is like Power Rangers or not, it gives you that opportunity. People are going to see like projects just because it's out there.
All right, cool. Randy, how do you feel about it? Do you think it's a boom or a bust?
I think you're assuming that Boom is a large publishing company.
But no, I'm sorry, it's not Boom. It's Boon.
Boom.
Is it positive? Is it something positive for us as independent publishers, or is it something negative that these large publishers are coming in?
And again, you're assuming that Boom is a large publishing company.
2%
Because
of the market.
there's a huge dropout. If it was Marvel and DC who are backed by AT&T and Disney, yes, I think there'd be a problem. Because these crowdfunding platforms should go, why are you here? But
Right.
for somebody like Boom, and I'm not sure about what the guy did with his $20 million, if he got it from Fox or if the money disappeared or whatever. But Boom is obviously out there looking for some capital flow in order to get this product done. And these guys, there's a huge step down after Marvel and DC. Even Image goes back and they're not wasting any money printing any of their products because it all leans back on the creators to pony up if that money doesn't come through. Their Image is a break-even company. That's the way it was always designed. But Boom and Dynamite and these other companies, there's a huge step down. I mean, these guys are just barely a step above Source Point, you know, as far as product goes. No, seriously, if you look at these numbers are bad. Numbers are always bad because the system is weak. And the system needs to be built up. It needs to be reinforced and built up. And if that, again, like everybody else says, if that helps build up this platform and brings more people in and Boom actually makes that money, you know, heaven forbid if they were to kick out that Power Rangers book and it not make any money. Oops. What happens then? These licenses are literal, they're big money to the people who own the license. And people who have to chase after this stuff. It's Power Rangers isn't cheap. The Hasbro contract isn't cheap, and it takes a lot in order to even break even on those licenses. You know, anybody that's dealt with having to go out and secure a license, there's a huge chunk of money that goes out right at the start, and then there's a percentage on everything that you make. So Saban or whoever owns Power Rangers is making money off of this. You know, they're going to make a percentage off of that product, but if it helps secure Boom to make better comics and to be a stronger company, not a bad thing, as long as at the same time it opens up that platform a little bit more and attracts more people from the outside going, you know, there might be some Power Ranger people out there who aren't that crazy about comics. They get in there and they see there's a nice comic of the hardbound, beautiful look to it with gold embossed in a slipcase and a beautiful product, and go out there and find other hardbound graphic novels the same way. It's a great thing, like I said before. No. But there is a huge, don't mistake them having Power Rangers for them being rich, because it doesn't work like that, because they're lucky to have the license. You know, now they have to keep it, they have to secure it, and they have to make money off of it, on top of getting approval from whoever owns the license for every little baby step that they take. So it's a job, and it's definite work in order to keep and secure that license, let alone do quality work. That's why a lot of these licenses out there, you sit there and you look at the products and you go, well, that's not this property at all, you know, because they have somebody up at the offices that that don't care about what you do with the license. You know, but it's a minefield, literally, when you take on a license like that, especially something big like Power Rangers. So they deserve to go out there and say, hey, if we do a collector's volume, you want in? You know,
one of the things I learned while interviewing Brent Irwin from Ape Entertainment was he had licensed a bunch of things. And one piece of knowledge that he dropped, because I never thought about this. He says there's two places you can come in. He says you're either in front of the market of the license, or you're running behind it. So he says you always want to be in front of it, meaning that's an active market, that's an active product that's already pushing you forward. So they already have product out there, and whatever you put out is just going to get further, you know, just keep pushing. Everybody's pushing at the same time.
Yeah.
But he says if you're behind it, because he said he had gotten, I guess, Casper the Friendly Ghost, and, you know, and some of these other things that goes along with that line.
Yeah.
Which one?
No,
was
not
it?
Captain. Captain Carrot was DC.
Yeah, Captain Carrot's DC.
Which one was it, Marcus?
It was Casper. What was the other one? He got the Richie Rich.
Hot Stuff, probably
Marcus
the
Hot
hard
Stuff.
Yeah.
He got a bunch of those. No,
Yeah.
he had a thing for Captain Carrot. He never produced Captain Carrot.
Sorry. I knew he was in there somewhere.
But he had said like he would that one was really hard to push because it was kind of on the dead side because nobody was pushing it with him. So he was behind it. So he was the one pushing it. He wasn't getting pushed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always found that interesting. So, you know, but Jay, do you know Brent?
Brent from Ape? No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, just to let you know, Anthony was breaking your chops because he printed a book with him.
Oh.
Well, to be fair, Marcus introduced me to Brent. They were hetero life mates prior, to me coming around. So, you know,
You
he brought me into the fold.
When I started hitting the con circuit, I remember seeing them with the big booths at New York Comic Con. Well, not the big booths, but they had like the 10 by 20s.
Oh,
right. And they're not there. You see the last con I remember seeing what Zenoscope. I guess they were the only one from that group that survived those years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
boom. Excuse me.
Well, Brent now has two comic stores.
Viper.
But didn't Devil's Due die out after they lost the G.I. Joe license for a minute?
No,
they had
the first Devil's Due.
The first Devil's Due.
Devil's Due. Yeah,
okay.
Bro.
Right, so the first
Viper was in the mix. What about Viper? You remember Viper? They was in the mix too.
Damn,
Samurai Penguin.
I'm sorry.
They were all at the same time.
Samurai Penguin.
Oh yeah.
Who had Ant? You remember Ant? She was a broad and she had the ant.
Yeah.
That was Arcana.
Arcana? That's another one.
Didn't Eric Larson buy that property?
Yeah, he did.
Right? Yeah.
I know the person who created the character in the series, and they sold it to Eric Larson, and nothing got done with it ever since. Or at least nothing important. I should say nothing important got done with it ever since.
Gotcha.
But before that, there was some guy out of Milwaukee that was supposed to front a bunch of money because I created a property the same time that Ant got pitched, that the guy was going to print, and then he backed out at the last minute. I was in full production on that property, and I was quietly ghosted, and then figured out that there wasn't any money there. So,
right. All right. So listen, guys, I got one more question, and then we can just go all open and just scream at each other.
That's the only reason I came on here.
I know. That's the fun part.
I hate you, JD. I hate you.
That you know what? I'm more than happy to be hated. Just understand me. I don't care what you say. I don't care if you live or die. That's all.
Wow. Wow. Say it like a true businessman. I don't care if you live or die. That's just it.
It's none of my business. It's none of my concern. I'm only joking. I love you, Jay.
There you
go. Sorry. So this has something to do. This is something completely different. This has more to do with the process of comics and like us as creators. So, what do you do outside of paying your artists on time? Right. What do you do to maintain that team? Like, what are the things that you feel are the things that you have to do as a team leader to, have a good relationship with those people that you hire? Like, what are the things you see yourself doing? I'll give an example. I've been working with my artist so long, right? What I do is when I go to Disney World, I buy her a shirt. I'll pick up, I go to different places and I'll buy her stuff. And like once a year, I'll put together a big box and I'll just ship it to her. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things I do, right? So what are the things you guys do to like make that connection with those people you're working with?
You only have to ship it to the basement.
Oh, wow.
No. My artist
that was Christmas, right?
No. Yeah, no. That's my artist is in Chile. My wife is upstairs. I'm in the basement.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Places. Yeah. And she was at Disney World with me. So, we'll start with Anthony. What do you do? Because you hired a bunch of people. What are you doing?
First of all, I can't stand my artist. He's a son of a bitch. I can't stand that motherfucker.
That's deep.
So, yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm gonna take a page out of Rocky Balboa's book and say, I ain't never been the manager. I've always been the managed. I don't. But I think one of the things is you make sure your paper's right. You make sure you try to do that. You make sure you try to. You look for me. I look for somebody who not only has the ability to do it, but has instinct to do it, and someone that I can, again, if I trust the skill, if I trust your work, then I include you in the creative process. I was working with a guy. He was like, I wanted the character's eyes to be a different color, and he made them this other color. And I was like, well, what did you make them that color for? And he's like, well, because the character's like, it's like a Yeti. So it's like from the snow. So I thought maybe blue eyes would be nice. And even though that's not what I wanted, I dug that, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you're thinking, you're, you know what I mean? And so it's like, that's what you want. You want to nurture that. So if I can keep that person happy by paying them, by continuing to give them work, things like that, so be it, man. I mean, I think that's part of the thing. Bonuses are good. If you're on a timetable and you say, look, this is my timetable. We have, this amount of time. I'm going to give you 20 days, 25 days to do this. If you come in under that 25 days, right, then there's a bonus right here, right? You can even offer a $50 on-time bonus. You can offer $150 if you come ahead of time. You know, you say, well, look, if you come in 20 days, here's this. If you come in, you know what I mean? As long as the quality's right. And then you offer bonuses. And if you do well, which is the other thing, if you do well, you know what I mean? Offer that too. Say, look, if we cross, 30,000, you know what I mean? There's a $200 bonus. If we cross 40, there's a $500 bonus. And you throw bonuses out there and you make them feel a part of the process. I think, as a creator, I mean, that's, and I'm not going to take Marcus's answers, but that's what he kind of did for me was, when he brought me in as an artist, he was, trusted me with it and allowed me to make changes and allowed me to become a part of the creative process. And, lo and behold, maybe sometimes to his dismay, we're still together after, 15 years and shit. You know what I mean? So something, there's something to that, to being involved in the process and feeling like you're part of the family. So
I'm gonna chime in on his answer here.
Go ahead.
Like, I made the mistake of going too far to retain an artist. I actually drove my big ass from New Jersey to Louisiana and lived with him for like 9 months.
Oh, was that a fucking mistake?
Oh yeah, was that a fucking mistake?
Carries emotional scars for life.
Yeah, they're I am scarred. I can't get rid of them at this point. So is what not to do. Do not move in with your artist, no matter how badly you want to retain him. Don't do it. A bonus will work fine. See, that's the reason it says life mate. Yeah.
Well, I married my artist.
Nice.
So, so sometimes it works out.
Sometimes. I ain't putting no rings on that finger.
I got you.
Sorry.
I got you. I'm not even going to go back to that power bottom thing, so I didn't want to talk about
that. Stop. Watch where you putting that finger, bro.
There you go. Randy, how do you feel about it? What do you think some of the things that can be done?
Well, communication is the key. How well you work with the person is super important as to how much work you're going to throw their way or give to them. If you can get on their same wavelength, or like what Anthony said, if they come up with a creative decision that makes sense, and you're thankful for that. Bonuses, I think, should be handed out as a surprise. I don't think that should be a carrot. The initial fee or the initial money should be a carrot, but everything else, I'm not against them offering a percentage on performance of the actual work. Hey, I'll pay you this much a page now, and 5 or 10% of anything that we make or anything like that in profit. That usually is an added percentage and keeps that carrot in front of the person and working. And you can always spare 10, 15% of the profit. It's coming off of the extra, off of your once you're past all the break-even point. But on top of that, one thing that we always used to do at Aero Comics back in the 80s is we would all get together every Friday and have a small pizza party. Everybody brought their portfolio, but we were all local also. Nobody was more. I was the farthest away. I was an hour away from their headquarters. So we drive down on Fridays, split, 4 or 5 pizzas, and go over everybody's portfolio at the time and critique everything. And that also encourages everybody to keep a level of work, a steady work rolling. Mm-hmm. So that turned out to be one of the most, I would say, creatively rewarding relationships that we had. I ended up being their art director after a while, so I'd get down there and spend the whole day. Then we'd end the day with a pizza party. We'd watch a bunch of movies, and then I'd leave after I woke up in the morning.
Yeah,
You know.
I did something similar to that with my artists way back when in the day, when I was doing Golden Realm Unlimited, and there was probably about 7 of us, and we were all pretty young. We were like between 15 and 19 years old, right? And you've never seen, and we're all kids from the ghetto, you know, and you've never seen a meaner group of artists, and we'd all get together and they'd all whip out their pages and they show them to each other, right? And you see everybody side-eyeing each other. They're like, okay. And everybody tried to bust out the best piece of the week. And everybody next week always came back trying to outdo that guy. Right. It was always interesting to see that, you know, those dudes, yeah. And you know, and Daphne was part of that crew. So, you know, maybe that'll answer some of your questions about the way she acts. You know. So Joe, what do you do to keep your artists around?
To be quite honest, I don't have that many that I work with on a consistent basis, but those that are part of my camp, I pretty much support them as much as they support me. And when I say support them as much as they support me, it's like not only, you know, make sure that they get paid on time and all the other stuff, but I support their projects just like they support my projects. If they go out there on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, I'm there. You need help with promoting, I'm there. That's the fastest way to maintain the relationship, because if they believe in you, you also have to believe in them just as much.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Now, let's talk to Mr. J, because I know he works with a bunch of people.
Yeah. So, you know, I definitely send them their merch, their comp copies, you know, shirts, anything that people get on normal Kickstarters, they get in bulk. Whenever I'm at a convention, they come to the con, they can bump with me, you know. They're coming into the con on my dime. I take care of them with whatever they're eating, you know, at the events that I'm at with. Sometimes I'll try to help cover the cost if they're doing a con that I'm not at. You know, they don't do 9 months bunking with me like you guys do, but, you know, they'll spend a weekend at the same hotel that I have. And you know what? When I did the Puerto Rico Comic-Con with a couple guys, I'm the one that took the cot, even though I paid for the room. So, I mean, come on, I'm giving myself up here. I'm throwing myself in the sword, guys. You know, and then if, you know, they're doing the sketch covers at the table, if they're with me, you know, you set your own rates. Don't worry about that stuff. Whatever you can do to make an extra dime while you're with me, I hope I can facilitate that.
All right, cool. Now, like I said, go ahead, Randy. What do you got?
When I was doing the paper, and I did a local advertising paper, a local comics and entertainment paper in the area, I would throw a show once a year, and I'd rent out the farmers market. We'd have a big convention, mainly to well, not really a big convention, like a one day show. Would have a costume contest, an art contest, that kind of thing, but mainly not just to thank the readers for sticking with us for a year, but to thank the talent. All of the talent got a free table at the show, and they were listed in the ads. And I'd advertise this thing in the paper like 6 months in advance and treat them like star guests. You want to come and meet Matt Frizzell, the Cynical Man? He's going to be here at the show. You know, you want to see whoever, even Variant. That's how I ended up meeting Variant. Was he come and got a table, then he wanted to do a strip. And then doing the strip gave him a free table. You know, so it was almost like an incentive to get his contribution into the paper. And it turned out to be really, really good. It formed a lot of great personal, permanent friendships, even though I wasn't paying them to contribute to the paper. But they got as many fringes as I could toss their way, and having the free table was a big part of that, and being treated like a guest while they were there.
All right, cool. Now, we're at that point in the show. I'm out of questions. So, Jay's been here, Joe's been here, Randy's been here. This is new for Marcus and Anthony. So, I open it up to you guys. You guys have any questions for everybody else pertaining to comics? I don't want to hear about nobody's sex lives anymore, okay?
That's fucking bullshit.
Marcus is suddenly let down.
I think you should. I spoke about what I did on the corner a few weeks ago, man.
right, we'll save that one for the next show.
Oh wow.
Well, we've stated on the Indie Volt podcast that I refuse to talk about my porn career. It was a long time ago, and it didn't really happen. So no.
Yeah, I have a long, illustrious career in porn. I'm just not sharing.
Yeah.
You know?
This is the last time I write this shit in my profile. I feel like I set myself up. You help me out, Ant.
too,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
you know,
So who's gonna be brave and step up? Who has a question?
I got something.
Go ahead, Jay.
Okay.
Okay.
Had crowdfunding been around 15 years earlier, 20, 30 years earlier, would these smaller indie companies like Ape or a Fleetway way back when, would any of these small publishers still been in business if crowdfunding was around back then?
All right.
Let Marcus answer that.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I knew Ape intimately. I seen some of the numbers those books were making. I know what my book made because we published with Ape. The numbers just weren't there. You know what I mean? They had some successes, but that was all licensed stuff. You pull any one of those things out and it just all starts to fall apart. You know what I mean? If you had crowdfunding back then, I mean, they had properties that they probably could have made significant money on. Something like Arcana. I mean, I remember Ant did really well for them. Like that propped up. I forget what was the other.
It was like Cade or something like this. It was.
Yeah. They tried to make that one the flagship, but Ant was the flagship of that company. Like, now imagine crowdfunding that and that thing popped at the time. You know, I do think some of these companies would have sustained themselves a lot longer had they had that option.
Yeah. Randy, how you feel about it?
All depends upon the company. You're trying to second guess, like an alternate history. We were talking about that at
This morning.
That you can't predict what would have happened or not have happened. Would have crowdfunding have helped the alternative market if it was around 20 years ago? Absolutely, because especially if it gave folks an option who were doing viable products that Diamond was giving them hell for. And because you know, and I know what Diamond was doing and the stunts they were pulling
100%.
and the cuts in the purchase orders and who knows what else, the high cost just to get your picture in the preview, depending upon who you talk to. Everybody had a different tale of woe from Diamond from a different direction. That just it blew my mind how bad it was and how much control they had over the market. It would have lessened their control on the market. It definitely would have helped it artistically and creatively, yeah. And certain companies would still that have folded would still be around today. Absolutely.
Yeah. I know for my part, it would have definitely helped me if I'd have been around. If it had been around 20, 30 years ago, forget about it. I had, like I said, I had a crew at that time. It was like at our peak, I think we had 12 people, and all of them were young and crazy, and they would have been all over the place pushing. Because, I mean, we at one time got a shipment of 5,000 books, and we sold those books out, hand selling at shows. It took us probably about 9 months to do it. But, but there was and there were weekends, there was one weekend, I remember there was 3 different shows, and we attended all 3 shows.
Wow.
All within New York and New Jersey. And it was crazy. But we had, we did it. We had a lot of fun. We made a decent amount of money. But if we would have had something like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, that'd have been insane. But that's my story. Joe, what do you think?
10 years ago, 20, if you go in 20, definitely. 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't be as struggling. Because like I said before, when I first started out, I paid for everything. Even now, I still prefer to pay for everything, up front. I don't believe in back end deals because there's nothing guaranteed. You could have one good issue, and then you could have a stinker. And if you got that stinker, guess what? Now you're on the hook for paying everybody else off that you could have done up front.
True enough. True enough. Now, Jay, answer your own question.
No, I think it would. I definitely think it would have. You know, there's a lot of people that tanked that I would have loved to see more stuff. I mean, it's second guessing, yes, but would Quesada and Promati still be producing their stuff and not have gone over and done the Marvel Knights had there been crowdfunding back then? You know, I liked Ash. I bought Ash. I was picking it up. You know, they were building up something nice back then. So.
All right. So now here's something that's more mainstream, right? Like DC has just cut like what 60 books from their line, right? They're only producing 32 books at the moment, 34 books, whatever it is, and they went from what 90 to 32, 34. Like, how do you guys feel that's going to impact us? Because I've already seen a shift of some of the big writers with some of the big artists saying, okay, we're going to move into crowdfunding, right? Now that's the big guys. Now what's going to happen when I hate calling them B talent, but you know, when the guys who are lesser known are going to move into this, because we're not talking about one or two people. We're talking about like a couple hundred, you know, maybe more. You know, we've seen months on Kickstarter where there's 175 projects. What's going to happen when that's 500 projects? What's going to happen when that's like, you know, 1,000 projects? You know, how are you guys feeling about that? And who wants to start? And we'll go from there.
I don't know. Off the cuff, I think those of us who have already have a foothold, because again, it's not, you know, in just to backtrack a little bit, and almost to play devil's advocate, the issue with the crowdfunding 20 years ago and whatnot is that the only reason the crowdfunding functions the way it functions now is because of the technology. Like, if you don't have YouTube, if you don't have Facebook, if you don't have Twitter, if you don't have this stuff, then you don't necessarily have the ability to put where you pushing this at. Where would you be Where would you be selling where would you be pushing all of this stuff? So again, all these guys can come in, right? But they still have to get YouTube. They still gotta go through all of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So there's that aspect of it. And then there's the aspect of the content to which you're writing and you're creating currently. Is that why there's only 30 titles now? Because the shit you were creating couldn't sustain 90. So you're gonna come in and create the same type of bullshit and the same type. You either have the skills to do it or you don't. And in that respect, you're gonna have the situation where, yeah, man, some people, it's gonna fuck over some people. But then again, steel sharpens steel. People are going to come in, and it's going to make the industry sharper and harder. You're not going to be able to get away with a lot of bullshit, man. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I think. I think people who are creating because they're creators at heart, they'll stick. You see these people who are in the industry because it's the pop thing, the fad thing, or they're trying to launch somewhere else, they'll fall off. Because you got to bust. I mean, let me tell you something. Everyone in here who's created knows. You got to bust your fucking ass when you're doing it yourself. And you don't have a marketing department, because you are the marketing department. And you don't have an artist, you are the artist. Writing, you are the writer. You have to do all these things simultaneously. This shit ain't easy. And when you don't have these companies doing all this marketing work for your ass, you got to go out there and you got to market it. And you got to get on live streams. Don't give a shit. You got anxiety. You don't like talking in front of people. Tough shit. You got to get out there and do that. And push your own product. And I think what we do is can't be just considered crowdfunding. We have taken it and taken something that existed 5-6 years ago. It ain't functioning like that no more. It's a totally different animal now. We have altered that. So those who are coming in who think they're just going to put a book up and they're just going to, that they're just going to put a book up there and it's just going to sell itself. There's a whole nother dimension and aspect of it that I think that those of us who are in the grind, who are doing it now, have a bit of an edge. And as long as you can keep your edge, I think that'll serve you well.
That's cool. Jay, how you feeling about it?
I want to echo a little bit of what Anthony was saying with the steel sharpened steel. There's certainly people who are on the fringe of the BCD list that are just like, you know what, I'm out, I'm gone, and they're going into other avenues. I know I've gotten a call also from a few guys. Those, hey, what are you doing? You know, do you need a cover for something? That I've gotten 2 of those already. Whatchamacallit. And I know somebody who got bumped off of a title with another major company, major, I guess, you know, one of the ones that aren't Marvel and DC, by somebody who got dropped off of one of the DC books. So the impacts are going around. It's all out there. But I think it was more of a cost cutting measure from a major company that was like, you know what, these guys, these titles, these expenditures aren't working. We got to get rid of them. We got to start turning $1 on this.
All right, cool. Joe, how you feeling about it?
Okay, repeat the question here because a lot of things that Anthony said holds true to that, but I want to make sure that I answer it clearly.
Damn it, you're gonna make me repeat my question again?
Yeah.
You know, I'm making this stuff off the cuff. I don't even remember.
Write it down.
I told you this is the yelling and screaming part of the program.
And you're yelling and screaming, so I kept my end up.
So, Anthony, what was the question again?
I thought it revolved around essentially how would cutting those titles down. Now you have all this B and C talent that's going to be filtering down.
Right.
You know, how does that affect us?
Or even will it affect us?
Yeah.
And I have to say it this way, and I know some of my fans may not like this, but I consider myself a C or D talent, and I grew. It gives you the opportunity to grow. If you're not growing, if you're not developing, if you're not doing what is needed to move yourself up to that next level, then you're already dead in the water. You don't care. It's like you're automatically saying that you really don't care. You might care about what you're doing initially, but you're not looking for that growth in the project that you're doing or the series that you're doing, and not even your own personal growth as far as an artist or a writer or everything like that. You always have to constantly learn and constantly involved, and that's how you make it in this industry. I went from being what I consider an F talent to a D, and I'm thinking I'm somewhere getting close to a C now.
That's fair. All right, cool. Randy, how do you feel about it? Do you think
Joe needs to find the guy that makes the report cards and pay him off, so he'll become at least a P talent.
Shit, I'll pay him off too if you tell me who he is.
There you go. Marcus, did you want to go? Is there anything that you wanted to say?
No.
I'm sitting here just bubbling, just waiting. I
I
like to let everybody else go first before I grab the soapbox and jump
Marcus, why don't you answer the question? Do you think those talents coming down from DC, do you think they're going to affect, the markets that we're in, and
And again, go ahead, Marcus.
I think it's hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a lot of cases, the ones that you might look at and be like, oh, that could be competition, aren't.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot of these people, comes down to, can you pencil a book under pressure for DC? Sure. Can you create a story and characters? Not so much. Can you market your own shit? No, not really.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just because they're getting released, it's, they've got the DC or Marvel moniker on them, does not mean they're actually a creator. You know what I mean? That's how I see it. It's like, you know what? Put up or shut up. I don't think a lot of them are going to, create those kind of waves. Not for us.
Fair enough. Randy,
My turn.
go.
Okay. This is, again, your premise is faulty. Okay.
Mhm.
And I understand that. I understand your question, but we are coming, 2 years? How long has DDO been out? About a year?
A little more.
Little more than a year. So like 2 years, I think before that, DDO come out and said, reason DC doesn't do more books because there's no talent out there. There's no talent. I can't find them. They're not out there. There's no talent. All that talent's already in the alternative and independent market. The ones that have it in their blood like everybody else has said, are already out here making books, doing stories, creating characters, because they realize that those companies are dying. The idea that there's an influx of talent coming in, DC has already stepped down once. Back when DiDio was in charge, they went from like 130 something down to whatever 90 or so that they've done. There was not a talent flux. And going out to crowdfunding, you had Scott Snyder try a book and get discouraged, and whatever Tony Daniel, I think, tried a book and didn't quite meet their expectations. Oh, we're going to make $500,000 on this campaign. No, didn't happen. That talent that you think is going to rush out from DC would have happened during the pencils down period, because the ambitious went out and started their own stuff. So where are those campaigns from? What it's been since March? They've been pencils down.
Right.
Where are those campaigns from those people? I don't see them. Plus, add on to that, who is it? Jimmy Palmiotti did a thing a couple of weeks ago where he's talking about there's no money in crowdfunding. There's no money. I've been working out here for so long, and I'm only making a certain amount of money. There's no money in this. There's just no money. So I think anybody that was working at Marvel and DC who already weren't making a lot of money to start with, honestly, have wandered off and gone on their way, or they've already dug in, or somebody has to make. They have to have had to make money by now, because there's been so many of these artists that have been on hold for so long. Where are they? They're not around here. They're not in crowdfunding, or we would see that big influx that you've seen. Are they all sitting on products that they're waiting until the winter is over? Oh, I'm coming out crowdfunding in March and April. I don't think they exist. I don't think they're there. The people that are in the alternative market now are the ones that have done this product and decided this is what they're going to do for the rest of their life. Other folks are out there writing prose, working on the great American novel, trying to knock a script into Netflix, out there working in trying to get into film production and do storyboard work, or get into them video games that they keep recalling, or whatever. They're out there. I don't think you're going to see a big influx of crowdfunding. I think you'll see an explosion coming up, but it's all going to be a lot of independent and alternative people, and maybe some of these companies like Boom trying to do a special product here and there in order to try to expand their capital base. But as far as there being a huge influx of talent from DC coming in and suddenly doing their own crowdfunding book, I got to be honest, there's a lot of people up there that just don't have the ambition to do what we're doing. It's just not there. They can't. You know, I think JD is seeing some of that.
Yeah.
When somebody's calling up, got a cover?
Yeah.
I could do a cover. Why don't you do an IP? I don't know.
So can I add on to this?
Yeah.
Because, all right, if I can use an analogy, jocks versus nerds, right? The indie alternative creators to those who have been published by major companies. Is there something missing in the dynamic that we have that they don't?
Creativity, an independent spirit,
okay,
an ambition to go out there and do your own stuff. Like we all have this, and I use this analogy a lot. Once you get that first book in your hand, once you smell that printing ink of something that you've actually done yourself, make that decision whether you're going to be in comics the rest of your life, or if you're going to be here for a few months and then go out and do something else, or flip burgers or whatever. You make that it flips the switch in your mind, and you don't care how much. Look at how long the independent market has struggled with folks that are still around after 20 or so years that have to do comics. We're out here because we love it. It's our passion. It's not because we found some corporate office somewhere and we can draw pretty pictures off of somebody's script. It's because we're here to tell stories and to entertain people. We're not here to be a cog in a great machine and do a flipping job and maybe get a page rate. You know, we're out here creating and I've said it before, we are the wizards. We are the magicians out here making the magic happen. And those people up there in the corporate offices have already forgotten how to make a decent comic. You can see that in their freaking sales. And all we need to do is attract that attention from people to go, oh, that's a good comic. I'm coming back next month, or I'm looking for your crowdfunding from now on because I want to catch your next product because that was really fun. That's all coming back to us. And whether Diamond wants to get on that, whether the retailers want to get on that, they are literally becoming a step behind the fans who are out there looking just to be entertained. That's why Polito does the great job that he does, because he's got a market and he knows how to entertain them.
So are we an extension of the early zines, or the extension of comics as a whole?
We are an extension of the art form.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The zines don't exist anymore. The zines
Did we
are
take that
online.
place?
The zines are the blogs. The zines are us here talking. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I would definitely say we're the disenfranchised portion of the industry.
Whenever somebody gets screwed in this business, in this art form, somebody figures out a way to get around it and they make money.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way it works. The black and white magazine boom is a prime example. Back when the Code come in, Bill Gaines searched for a little while, tried different books, tried to work within the Code and couldn't do it because the Code kept giving him a hard time because they didn't want him on the stands. So once he figured that out, oh, you don't want me here. Just like Diamond has already said in a lot of these alternative guys, we don't want you here. Okay, we'll go out and find another way. Well, guess what? Here comes crowdfunding. A couple of years later, suddenly people are making a living. Dig that. In all of this time, when we've been trudging through the trenches, praying we can cover our print bill. Now here's an opportunity to us to actually start making some profit. And the creative people out here, which we are the ones, the alternative and the independent creators are the magicians, the true creative people. We're going to go out there and find different distribution avenues. We're going to go out there and find different ways of getting sequential art in front of people because it's what we love to do, and we want people to see it. And that's what we're going to do. Those people that were up there at DC, the majority of them have already wandered off. They did it back during the first pencils down thing. The remaining people that were left that DC decided to hang on to are now all sitting there going, I can't do I want to draw. Anybody got a script? You got a cover? Got a cover I can do? They're not out there creating IPs. And if they are, believe me, their name isn't going to be recognizable. It's their talent that's going to settle out over the next couple of years. That's why it's a great time to be an independent alternative comics and doing crowdfunding books and being out there in the trenches trying to find different avenues to get our stuff out to.
Yeah, I think it boils down to what Anthony was saying earlier. A lot of them are accustomed to being managed, not being managers.
Yeah, good call on that. Yeah.
Well, go back and look at that rant or email or Twitter or whatever Jimmy Palmiotti, where he swears up and down there's no money in crowdfunding. I've been out here for years and I can't get it to work.
Well, I mean, and that's weird because I see him raising $18,000, $20,000, $30,000 a pop. I mean, if he's not raising 100, 200,000, I mean, I don't know,
Does he mean in relation to what he gets, page rates for?
Right,
is that what he's trying to match?
Yeah.
Go back and he wasn't making money. Honestly, once you look at how much money Marvel and DC have been their page rates, they're not making a lot of money.
Oh no.
Right.
These people aren't clearing down, they're barely squeaking a living. If they're lucky. If you're working up there as an editor, you're making what, 30, 40,000?
But
I would say Brian Polito
maybe 60
would argue against that.
Right.
Yeah, Brian Polito's kicking fucking ass.
That's not
right now.
somebody that nobody's listening to up
But-
there.
But this is the thing. Go ahead.
All Jimmy knows is he's tried a model and apparently it doesn't work for him, so there's no money out here.
But then
Well,
again,
that's cool, Jimmy, see, go do some storyboard work.
but to play devil's advocate here, at least for Jimmy.
Mhm.
Jimmy never had to deal with the rest of it. He was just always paid to draw. He never had to hire an editor, hire colors, hire all these other people, and be responsible for making certain that they are getting paid. So now he's going from being just an artist to an actual publisher / editor-in-chief. And a lot of people who don't know what that hat truly entails until they actually do it. And when they actually do it, they up here is like, well, I was making more money just by drawing pages. It's like, but technically you're not, because of the simple fact that you're putting on a publisher's hat at this point. You have more things to be responsible for. Your expenses to produce a product just skyrocketed from, just buying the normal stuff to do wherever your pages. If you're not doing it digitally, your overall expenses have just skyrocketed to the point where you're not going to see a lot of money up front. It's more along the line of you building your fan base. As long as your fan base is happy, guess what? The money's going to come in.
But wasn't Event Comics owned by Jimmy and Joe?
They were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's had self-publishing experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
He knows what it's like to be in the trenches, but he can't make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Polito can, right? When you look at what Polito's doing, he's bringing in about $4 million a year almost with his crowdfunding. Even if you're paying, right? We know how much books cost, whether you're offsetting, whether you're we know how much those little tchotchkes things cost, right?
Okay.
And when you factor all that in and you look at the staff, he posts his staff on every Kickstarter, right? From everyone down to each cover artist to the people working in the warehouse. You could pay everybody handsomely. And Polito's still bringing in, close to $200,000 a year on his own, man. That's good scratch.
So you're talking about Polito and you're not talking about Palmiotti, right?
No, I'm talking about Polito.
No,
talking about Polito. Yeah.
Okay.
His Lady Death books alone bring in 300 plus, right?
Well,
he drops 3 of those a year.
He's got it down to a business.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
Oh, he
And
does.
it's somebody who has hardcore self-publishing experience, who's been in the trenches, and most importantly, he really knows how to market to his audience.
Mm-hmm.
He utilizes the tech, man. He utilizes the technology.
Yep. And it's not something he did overnight. It's something he learned and he did. And he wasn't all successes. He's had books that have failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, he lost Lady Death for a while.
Yes.
That was sold to another company, and because they went under, he was able to reacquire it. So, God bless
So
him.
why is he where he is now? It's
Because he's
because
fucking hungry. Because he's hungry, bro.
Yeah.
He did the work. He did the work. He figured out how to make it work.
He's been in the trenches, and that's what I think. That's what everybody's saying is he's been in the trench. He's had to do without, and I think that's what we all share. Versus these people who are coming in from these bigger companies, it's like, hey, bro, I know how to survive off of ramen noodles and fucking sausages, partner. You understand? I don't need fucking hamburgers and steak and shit. I can make this work with very little. You know what I mean? And I think that's the difference is when they're coming in and it's like, nah, bro, you got to do all this. You got to go. And so if you're used to any luxury or cush shit, that's gone, bro. Yeah. And if you can't adjust to that, you know what I'm saying? If you don't have that mindset, and again, that's back to Randy's point. And my point is, if you don't have a love for this, if you don't have a thirst for this, you're gonna quit. You're gonna be like, I'm not putting in all that shit for that. Oh no, I'm not doing that. Yeah. I'll go do something else, man. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I think is missing from anything other than the people who have been in the game, been in the trenches, and had to work their way and bust their ass out. It's like, yo, man, like I can adapt to some shit. Can you adapt? I guess at the end of the day, those who are coming in, can you adapt? Because if you can't adapt, I don't give a shit how well you draw. I don't give a shit how well you write. This is a different game. And if you can't adapt to that, we'll go the way of the dodo.
Yeah. And we've seen some big time DC talent come out into the crowdfunding era and adapt. But they did the work. They went out there and they built an internet audience. They built a YouTube crowd. They figured out how to cater to them, and that's what they did, and they're making bank.
Yep. Now listen, guys.
It's a matter of getting into those trenches, getting your feet muddy, and actually working.
Yep.
Now,
and
guys,
a lot of these guys just don't know how to do that.
Well, that's true. That's very true. But we'll see. But I want to. All right. Does anybody have another question?
No.
Okay, so I got one last question. This is actually from what Joe had mentioned, and then after that question, we'll wrap it up. So, Joe, what I found interesting that you said that you consider yourself an F talent, and you've built yourself up to like a C talent, and you're looking to work your way up, and I find that very admirable. Not many people are that conscious of where they're at. You understand? Because I know I every day I try to I don't know if any of you heard me say it, I try to be a better writer today than I was yesterday, and I try to be and tomorrow I will try to be a better writer than I am today. You understand? So my question is this: is what do you guys do to try to improve? Like what are the muscles? What are the things you're doing to try to improve your craft, your art? So Mr. Well, we'll start with Joe because the question comes from you.
Well, the question was derivative of what I said. It's like what I typically do is like I try to constantly do something different in each page that I draw. It's like the comment was more about my artwork more than the writing, but I do improve my writing by just writing more. But when it comes to the artwork, I have to like literally study. I study what other people do. And a lot of things that people get on me about, it's like you don't draw with a lot of detail. It's like, but my style doesn't require much detail. I could do the shading and stuff, but it doesn't look right to me. That's just not the way that I look at things and do things here. When I look at shading, I look at it as more of coloring. And if I'm going to color, I'm going to do the full thing. It's not just, the pencil shading and all this other stuff. So that is a major effect of my art style when I do my pencils. So when I do that, I have to like literally study what this person does, break it down to the point where it's like, okay, he's doing that for shading, but it's the overall concept of, does the hand look like a hand? Does the backpack look like a backpack? Does this table look like a table? If I'm getting the wood grain up in there, am I drawing the wood grain up in there before the shadowing come in? Stuff to that magnitude. And, that's how you eventually build yourself up and you actually start to try to do it on your own. And as you do it on your own, you practice and practice and practice, and soon you get better at it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jay.
Learn from you guys. Anthony, you said it before, man. Steel sharpens steel, right? I can compete with you guys, right? In a way where I don't hate you, right? It's like I'll pick a ball game. We're trying to beat each other. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're still having a beer, right? I'm still talking to you tomorrow. Just because I'm competing with you, I'm not hating you. I don't know how many times I've done conventions where I'm going back and forth with my neighbors. Oh, you made your table yet? Oh, I got you. I beat you. Stuff like that. You're trying to chase each other, but at the same time, we're learning from each other. I'm learning what you do that works. How can I apply that and spin it to what I'm doing, right? And that's going to make a better product. And then bringing on better talent, right? Dude, the missus, she's now the one lettering my books after always being over my shoulder, paying attention to what I'm doing, studying on her own, and she's teaching me things. And she just started doing this. I put up the graphic novel, right, where she relettered all 4 issues, dude. And I'm just like, shit, this is kick ass. And she has fun doing it. And it takes one more thing off of my plate so I can learn how to do something else better or look for what is working with somebody else and see if I can apply it to myself. That's why I miss conventions. I'm sorry. Look, I'm lucky doing this with you guys, right? But this is not the same as what's going on at a con. Before the doors open, I'm jaw-jacking with as many people as I can, building up that network. And the only way I can really do it is with group meetings here. And it's not enough. Not that I'm not appreciative of this, but there's something that you learn when you're at a con that you're not learning by the Twitter, by the Instagram, by the social stuff, and I'm not knocking it, but when you're hand selling a book, when you're traveling, miles for a convention, when you're meeting people and you're learning on the fly, this pitch is working, this pitch is not working, and you could change it up instantaneously. You're not getting those same effects with, A or B ads on Twitter and Facebook. You're not getting the quick education that you would when you're at a con.
All right, cool. Mr. Magic Man. what do you do to improve yourself?
Now you see me.
Nice.
Now you don't. I'm gonna go. It's mainly what Jay was saying. You know, it's you know, as an artist, it's like, look, man, like I know the areas where I'm weak. Like, we know the areas, whether it's perspective, whether it's cars, whether it's whatever it is. It's like, and so I have to be willing to kind of when I have free time to dig into that stuff. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And again, or one of the things you do is find, and this goes back to JD said, go find you an artist, find someone who does what you do and scares the shit out of you. It scares you. You know what I mean? And go in and be like, what is this guy doing, man? What do they do? You know what I mean? That's what I did. I was looking at McFarlane. I was looking at Jim Lee. I was looking at the dudes who were at the top, and I was going, man, how are these dudes doing this? You know, and I would just grind in. And it's the same concept. The other part I'm going to tell you is and Randy hates when I bring this up, but you really need mentors, man. You really need people to whom you can really trust to show your work to and say, hey, man, tell me the truth. Like, can I improve here? Can I improve here? Can I and be willing to take that in and be willing again to want to be the very best you can be. You know, that's my thing. Is it's like wherever I'm at, and believe I'm trying to be grateful for where I am. But it's like I already know there's tons of areas that I can improve in. Oh, yeah. So I want to be open to these areas so I can whittle down and I can become better and become the best that I can be. You know, and unfortunately I can't always see that. I don't have the eyes for it. Sometimes I need someone else who has outside perspective to give me input, to say, hey, look, man, try this. And again, it needs to be people that I trust. You know, I trust Randy. I'll bring things to Randy because I trust his eye. So when he tells me something, whether I agree with it or not, I need to be willing to look at it and see if what he's saying holds any water, even if there's a 1% chance of what he's saying is true. I need to look at it, you know. Yeah. And if I have two other mentors and I show it to them and that comes back and they're like, yeah, that does look like it needs work, then I have to be willing to say, gotcha, boom, I need to go back and I need to work on that, you know. And so it helps. You know, Marcus is another one. I trust Marcus a lot. And so I show him shit. And it's like, you know, and I tell him, don't give me the bullshit. What do you think? Like, you know what I mean? Tell me the truth. Like, does this work? Because I'm feeling like this leg here is not working. Are these colors right? You know what I mean? Or am I just tripping? Because sometimes I'm like, this isn't working. And I'm showing it to 3 or 4 people. And I'm like, nah, this looks great. And I'm like, fuck, man, you know, and then I have to cut loose on that too and say, hey, look, I can't overwork this thing. I've showed this to 2 or 3 people who I trust. They're like, dude, it's on point. I need to just let go and say, gotcha. Let it roll, man. You know. So
I want to apologize. I'm not laughing at what you're saying, Anthony. I'm laughing because I love Talladega Nights also. And
I saw you laugh when I first put the Magic Man on. So I knew, bro. I knew when you first put it.
You guys put that up there. I'm popping for that big time, man. I love that shit.
All right. So
now Marcus, for El Diablo.
El Diablo, yes.
Shake and bake, baby. Shake and bake.
What are you doing to improve yourself?
I'm sorry, Anthony almost lulled me to sleep there.
Sorry.
That fucking hurt, bro. That fucking cut me deep over here.
That hurt. You're talking to the power bottom about it hurting, right?
Hey, man. Look, the power bottom chose you, bro. You understand? It's the life, baby. You know what I'm saying? You don't choose that position. It chooses you.
This is now slowly becoming the TMI.
Well, they did spend 9 months with each other. So.
You know?
Oh, man, that's great.
Shake and bake, man. If you're not first, you're last, man.
That's right, baby.
If you're not top, you're bottom. Okay? That's it.
What was the question again?
So, what do you do, right, as a creator to improve your craft? Basically, that's what it is. Whether it be a writer or artist, it doesn't matter.
Writing wise, it's just for me. I mean, you got to put the work in. Mm-hmm. I write a ton of stuff, not even story wise, but like background stuff, histories of characters, random shit. Just all the time. For me, it's more so inspiration and finding that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, I mean, there's so many things out there now. Like growing up, it was like, Star Wars was like, that was the holy grail. Now it's like you've got so many different things out there, access to everything. As I've gotten older, it's just become more, absorbing newer stuff and trying to apply that to what I do, and coming up with new ways to do it, while still retaining, the core of what we do. You know what I mean? Like not trying to reinvent the wheel. And that's it. You know what I mean? Like just practice makes perfect.
What he does, this is what he does. He asks me to send him a sample of my writing, and it makes him feel so much better about his own writing. He says, man, I'm a good writer, boy.
Wow.
So I'm glad I could be of service,
Yeah, look, I read your stuff and I'm like, this motherfucker got a book put out. Get the fuck out of here. I can handle this shit.
See that? It's motivation, bro.
I say that all the time. Oh shit.
Listen, it was a workout just editing your shit. So
Dang. Wow.
But he's sharp now, boy. Look, he's sharp now.
Nice.
You're welcome,
that's what I needed. I needed script pages out of order, lettering page 13. I don't have page 14. It was interesting. Thank you. I appreciate it though.
Hey,
very sharp
welcome,
now,
bro.
Nice.
You're welcome.
Randy.
Just gotta love that challenge. Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, it's not looking forward as much, or looking at these guys that are already, or that the big people that are currently in the field. Sometimes you also have to dig back too, because there's a lot of gold in them there hills out there. If you're not familiar with why everybody hated Frank Robbins when he first come out, but love him now, there's a challenge there for your artists. If you're not familiar, if you hated Kirby in the 70s but love him in the 2010s and 20s, you got to figure out why that suddenly works. These old dogs can teach you a lot of new tricks that a lot of these new guys have forgotten about, especially when it comes to sequential art and storytelling. If you're not looking at, I look at Eisner's book all the time, the comics and sequential art book, because it's a textbook on how to make a story, how to do a tight story, how to tell it. Honestly, when you're creating comics out there, in my opinion, this decompressed storytelling crap where you're telling what should be in 2 pages in an entire issue is a problem, because people don't want to read that. They want to be able to buy your book and feel like they've gotten something for it. They want to be entertained and they want to see movement. They want, especially in comics, because comics, the big thing with comics, I'm getting ready to do a video about this for my channel. Comics have always been the big successful ones over exaggeration. And you don't see that today because everybody's out there desperately looking for realism. Comics aren't real. This is not real. Comics are not real life. They don't have to be, and they shouldn't be. They should be the exact opposite, because that's how you entertain. You lose people. Look at anime. It's a prime example. Anime is, you very rarely see hardcore realism. Everything's being stretched. Even in realistic anime, you'll still see that occasional big bug eyes and there's crazy exaggerations in the faces and that, because that's entertaining. It's not realistic, but it's entertaining. We're not seeing enough of that now, and that is in every aspect of comics, in the art and the story. It's still in a totally unique art form that the CGI and Hollywood are just barely starting to catch up to us. And we need to take that and stretch the fuck out of it so that they keep trying to catch up to us. And going back and looking at how some of these guys drew, how some of them told stories, some of the stories that they told, Jack Cole, Plastic Man is a prime example. That what was he on? The imagination level in some of these guys is phenomenal and overlooked. to a large extent of this current market. Not everything has to be real. You don't have to do every shoelace on the boot in order to tell an entertaining story. You know, and sometimes somebody who's like the wolf in a good Tex Avery cartoon, jaw hits the floor, tongue rolls across the table. Sometimes that's very entertaining. You know, and it might not be a great in a Tarantino-esque type story, but, you know, comics are always about the over-exaggeration. That's what the Marvel way was all about. You don't just show somebody getting hit. You show somebody getting hit, flying back and smashing into, you know, 3 walls in. I don't see enough of that anymore. You know, and you have to go back and look at the old styles too and what really worked for them. That when, for example, Fawcett Comics, and stop me, JD, if I get too wordy, but because I go off on this. This is a passion. Fawcett, when Fawcett started with Captain Marvel and C.C. Beck realized that he's going to have to turn off a lot of pages in a hurry in a medium that's made for color, he automatically stripped everything out of his style down to the bare minimum. Alex Toth is another prime example for this. Somebody who, when he was working in animation, literally stripped all of the detail out to just bare bone line and black space and white space, you know, or negative space, positive space. Had it down to a science. In fact, had it down so well that he completely dismissed it and thought the shit he was doing was crap for years. Until people had to point out, you know, Space Ghost, really fucking awesome design. You know, we have to go back and we have to look at that stuff too, because that's how we advance. We have to know where we've been in order to take us to where we're going. And they're for too long, comics have been stuck in realism, trying to tell stories about real life. And there's nothing wrong with American Splendor, but even American Splendor, even Harvey Pekar had enough sense to go out and hire Robert Crumb to tell those stories, because Crumb had an interesting style and was able to take the mundane and make it interesting.
Are you trying to tell me that comic books like the Avengers, where they're sitting down for pages on end, having a coffee, that's not something you're interested in?
Or they're all out having pizza.
Exactly.
You know, they in the movies, they saved the shawarma scene for very last as relief.
Yeah.
That's when everybody was sitting around talking. But in the meantime, they were out there banging heads and going who knows where. Comics need to get back to that style of kinetics. And you don't see that in Marvel and DC anymore. Batman's too busy about why Catwoman never showed up at her wedding. You know?
I think part of the problem is what has inspired these writers and artists that are doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they get paid by the page.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I know for me, it was my dad bringing home, you know, Spider-Man and all these comics, and that's what I fell in love with. That's what made me want to do this, and that's where I learned how to do it. Yeah. Where did they get it from? Because I watched their shit, and it's like, this feels more like a storyboard to a film, and you're trying to break everything down. Who was it that maybe it was Ethan that had it the other day, and he was talking about somebody had posted something where it was like they complained about filling up the whole page with just panels of somebody's face.
Yeah,
and it's the same.
It was 3 pages of Tom King stuff.
Yeah. And it was like, why? I mean, like, why would you do that? I could throw something on this, and I'm sure Randy would agree with this. All of us will probably agree with this in some extent, because part of the issue is that you had an influx of people who did not grow up with comics. That's what I'm saying. Like, you got a bunch of creators now they brought in the last 5 and 10 years that never were into comics, and I think that's what a lot of people, I know myself, got pissed off at. Is it's like, hey man, I was into comics when the shit wasn't cool, bro. When, you know, you had to like be careful. You couldn't be showing people you was doing comics and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so we've been in the trenches this whole time, and now you have these people coming in telling us what comics are, how they should be done, and everybody's like, well, where have you been? Where'd you come from? You got guys like this guy who wrote the new Warriors, talking about, well, you know, the new Warriors, they were a little bit too extreme for me, and I'm like. That no comic book person who ever was in the comics would ever make that statement ever. That would never happen, bro. You know what I'm saying? So it's like just what Marcus said.
what were you doing? Because you weren't into comics. I can tell you that.
When Fabian was writing the New Warriors, right? He was that was his side job. He was writing New Warriors on the train, and he was selling ad sales. He was doing ad sales for Marvel. That was his main job, so he could get his benefits. The writing stuff was stuff he did on the train, going to and coming home from work. So, Randy, you know this. You know, if you're in it, you're grinding it out. You're grinding it out for years, man. Mm-hmm.
Well, look at all of the Stan Lee written material. Mm-hmm. Stan Lee didn't write that while he was at the Marvel offices because he was doing Marvel business.
Right.
And he wasn't really totally writing those books anyway. He was scripting them because he had hired people that he knew how to tell a story in 20 pages. There'd be a quick call. Hey, Jack, what do you want to draw? What are we doing this month? Okay, That's cool. Let's do that. Click. Then he'd get the pencil pages in. Then after work, he'd sit there with a legal pad and sit there and scribble out what everybody was going to say, take that, stuff it into an envelope, and send it to the letterer the next day. That's the Marvel way. That was really not the 616 BS that you see now, but that was the prime Marvel way. That's how Stan was able to write 12 books a month because he scripted.
Was it Jim Shooter? Oh, maybe it was Neil Adams. One of them said that one of the issues too is you got weak editors, man. He's like, you just got weak editors, man. You know what I mean? You had a shooter in there, bro. And you had people like this. Like they're not going to put up with bullshit. They're not going to put up with weak stuff. But you got weak editors in there now that are letting bullshit slide, that is letting things push through. And it's like, well, if this is the standard, bro, if you've allowed the standard to lower, well, then anyone who can leap over that, that's who you're going to start getting in there. And then you got people like us who are like, bro, like, go ahead.
Part of the problem now is you got editors that are just afraid to say anything.
Mm-hmm. Right, because you got the pay discrepancy, right? You got the talent that they're making boku bucks, and the editors are like, the talent's money shows you how much more important they are to the upper offices than the editors.
Well, if you were working at the DC offices, the assistant to the assistant editor is now in charge. Right. Because everybody else has been sacked. Yeah. So where's that talent going to happen? What's going to happen there? But the thing that I found really distressing is there's been a whole group of editors or people that have been hired in over top of having to write and work your way up in comics that have come into comics that have decided to do their serious research. And the serious research they're stumbling across is probably the origin of Wonder Woman. And how Marston used Wonder Woman as a tool to boost feminism. And they're coming in and going, oh, well, we need to do that in the other direction. We need to use our books to deflate masculinism and chauvinism. We need to teach these men a lesson. This has been a male power fantasy business.
Which is a shitty thing to do, but damn it, at least be good at it. I mean, that's my thing. It's shitty to do it, but at least goddamn have some talent and do it. Entertain me while you're knocking my goddamn masculinity down. Don't give me some fucking propaganda bullshit.
Yeah. If you're going to make propaganda, make good propaganda.
Yeah. Right. Number 2 person.
Don't let me know it's fucking propaganda. I mean, you know what I mean? Be a real propaganda. Don't let me know it's propaganda. God damn it, I know it's propaganda. It ain't going to work. I know what the fuck you're doing.
Number 2 person at Marvel. At Marvel Publishing. They asked her what her comic influences were. She's like, well, my big brother used to read comics, and I watched the X-Men cartoon growing up, and I kind of liked it. That's her response. It's not like I bleed and I live and I breathe this stuff. It's, well, my brother bought comics, and I watched the X-Men cartoon growing up. That's her experience in this market.
I risked my freedom for my first comics, man. Mm-hmm. I stole them. How about that? I was willing to risk my freedom for my comics, man. You know, shit.
I just bought JD secondhand comics. That's what I did.
I did that. I did that.
Comics was a way to improve my reading comprehension.
I agree.
That's a true story because that was the only reason why my mom ever bought me comics was just like it was just something to get me to read.
Yeah, same here.
I wish I wish I could say that, but it wasn't. My parents, we was just at the store. And we was like, man, look at that. That looks cool. And it was like 3 of us. And we just started, stealing them, bringing them home and drawing them. And each one, we would copy them, and each body would copy and who could copy better. And then we would trace, and then we moved into copying and shit. But that's how that was, man. Like, that's how it started for me. And it's just, man, that something about it, something about them old school colors, man, them old school books, bro. As loud as some of them colors were, man, it just, I don't know, man. There's something about that shit that when you look at it, even today, because I got a bunch of them that I still got them. And you go back and you look at Bob Layton's run on Iron Man when he was doing Iron Wars and shit. It's just, I don't know, man. You look at that shit and it's just, there's something about it. It's like, man, that's what I want to create. At the end of the day, I want to create something that invokes that in people when they look at it. You know what I mean? It makes them go, wow, this is cool. I like to do this. You know what I mean?
All right. So guys, we're done. So Joe, let everybody know where they can see you and your work.
Well, you see me, and now you see some of my work. This is what I was working on. That's the reason why I was disappearing. May not be in focus, but that might be a little bit better. But in all actuality, you could hit me up on Facebook up under Joe D. McPhee. You could look at our comics at exigencystudios.com. That's XIGENCY studios.com. You could get our books there, or you could get them digitally at Comixology, and you could also hit me up on YouTube as well. We do the comic book show from the desk of the Small Press Publisher.
Cool. Jay?
All right, Facebook. You can catch me, JD Rosario, the way it's spelled there. You can also find us at unstoppablecomics.com, Unstoppable Comics on Instagram, Unstoppable Comics on Facebook, Unstoppable COM on Twitter, because it's only 15 letters max.
All right, cool. Mr. Anthony?
All right. So, Mr. Anthony, or the Magic Man, or Mr. Figaro. You can find me on all the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. Hell, I'm branching out. I'm on Parler. I'm on Gab. What's the other one? Minds, Rumble. All the whatever. Anyone on LinkedIn? Hell, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can either find me at Anthony Figaro, or you can find me at Kid Destructo. And you can find me on all of those things. You can even go to my website, which is www.kiddestructo.com. And you can find out all the cool things. I had a book which will be coming out and will be available on my website, hopefully by the beginning of February, which is called God's Hand. And then by the end of this month, we'll have a book by Wolfpack Studios called Justice City Chronicles. Marcus is going to tell you more about this, or El Diablo, as he likes to be called. He's going to tell you a little bit more about it. But that's where you can find me. And I do, JD, I do covers. I pour myself out at any time. I don't mind. But you can find me just about anywhere. So that's my story.
Shake and bake, baby.
Shake and bake.
All right, Marcus, where can people find you and your work?
You can find me on Twitter at Wolfpack Comics, Instagram, same thing. That's it. I'm going to be dropping Justice City Chronicles in February.
Yes.
Hopefully we get this God's Hand thing shipped out. So I want one of those in my hands.
Yes.
And that's it. Be coming at you soon.
All right, cool. Randy, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook still, at least for now, under Randy Zimmerman. You can find me on Twitter under Randy Zim, but I'm not up there very often. Might drop that here soon. You can find me over on YouTube at the Zim Geek channel, ZIMMGEEK, where I do cartoon instructionals and an occasional comic commentary. And then also I'm part of the Indie Volt Radio Network. We run Live Wire, our main show on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m., Then I'm on the Breakfast Buzz on Thursdays at 9 a.m. All these times are Eastern Standard Time. And then I also MC a program called the Sunday Funnies that's on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. where we talk about the more lighthearted and whimsical side of comics and the history of comics, Golden Age, Underground, that kind of thing. I've got a couple of great guests lined up for the next couple of weeks. That'll be very, very fascinating. One, the next week will probably be a bunch of old dudes talking comics. And then the week after that, we're going to get in pretty heavy into some underground stuff, I hope. So we'll see how it goes. And that's on Indie Volt Radio, IndieVoltRadio.com, IndieVolt.com, and the Indie Volt channel on YouTube. Everything is archived over there. So.
Cool. And I'm JD Calderon. You can find me on the JD Calderon on Facebook, Twitter, DeviantArt, and you can also find me under the Oswald Chronicles or Tall Tales Online. Currently available on Indiegogo. I don't have any.
For the free advertising. Thank you.
I'll show you this. This is the future. This is coming up real soon on Kickstarter. Sometime next month. So thank you so much, everybody. Please hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, and I'll be talking to you all soon. Have a good night, guys.
Take care, everybody.